of the Cleveland.
Okay. I'd like to call the planning board meeting of June 15th to order at 2:01. First part of business is introduction of planning board members and staff. We'll start with David Fields, who is our community development director, and Greg Catamatori, our planning director, Hank McCarl, I'm Rick Noonan, chair. We have Doug Cook, Jane Ramson, Sean Henry, Beverly Bookin, our scribe, Catherine McNiff, and I think that's everybody. Is that right?
Yep.
So first order of business this evening. Let's just see how we're doing on the attendees list. Too bad so far. First order of business this evening is the comprehensive plan initiative. And I'm going to defer to Mr. Fields to sort of give us a brief overview, plan kickoff, scope, discussion of project expectations, and review of next steps. We do have our newly installed consultant and her team here as well. So if David, if you want to take a minute to sort of set a framework for us.
Sure thing. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the board. As you mentioned, we're here tonight with our consultant, Jen Goldson, representing JM Goldson. She also has members of her staff on board, and I'll let her introduce any sub-consultants that are here in just a moment, but just wanted to give this group a brief overview. This will be a newly installed, once we're completed, comprehensive plan, the first update since 2001. So we're very much looking forward to that. We're looking forward to kicking things off with Jen, and additionally, hopefully getting some great policy recommendations from the public and this board as we move through the different phases, which I think Jen will outline for us. So without further ado, Jen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm so happy to be here. We do have several members of our team here who I'll introduce as well. And I'm looking in the participant list. I also see Juliet Walker. Greg, if you could let her in. All right, good. So I'm Jen Goldson. I do have a presentation to share if that's all right. Let me see if I have the ability to do that. Yes, I do. All right. So give me a second here and I will get this up for you. Sorry, I have too many screens on here. Here we go. All right. There we go. And then sorry, I should have done this before you called on me. I was unprepared. All right, here we go. Okay, now you should see the screen. Looks good? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, good. So really happy to be here. We have members of our team from JM Goldson, as well as Cambridge Econometrics, Kittleson Associates, and Innes Associates. And everyone will get a chance to hear from them. But I'll just start out just to say how thrilled I am that our team was selected. We were really crossing our fingers. We wanted very badly to work on this project with you. So we're really thrilled to be here. As I said, I'm Jen Goldson. I'm the founder and managing director of JM Goldson. And I've assembled over the years a team of planners, and we're planners on a mission. And our mission is to empower people to create sustainable, equitable, and authentic places. And I think that's exactly what Gloucester also wants to do. So we're excited to have this kickoff meeting with you. You can see from this chart here that we're your prime consultant. We'll be focused on community engagement, as will also be your primary contact. And we'll be focusing on all sorts of elements that I listed here: land use, housing, historic preservation, etc. And then I'd like to have Alana Zabar, who is also here from JM Goldson. Can you introduce yourself, Alana?
Hey everyone, my name is Alana. I am going to be the assistant project manager on this project, and I'm also our community engagement specialist here at JM Goldson. So I oversee sort of all of the engagement work we'll be doing as well.
All right, excellent. And there are a few members of our team, you'll see from time to time who will also be working behind the scenes. Laura Smead is one. We have someone, it's a little confusing, but we have someone named Elena, who's different from the Alana who you just met. We also have Cadenace and Brenna and Flavio. So you'll see mostly me and Alana at meetings, but just so you know, there's a whole team working behind the scenes as well. All right, Anne, I believe you're here from Cambridge Econometrics. Could you give an introduction?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Anne Furbush. I'm on the Cambridge Econometrics team, along with my colleague Daniel Hodge, as well as Jen. And I just want to reiterate how excited we are to be on this project. We're focused on the economic development portion. And I'm trying to think, we've done a number of these types of economic development projects with the J.M. Goldson team. And I think we work really well together, and we're excited to take on this one.
Yeah, we agree, and we're looking forward to it as well, Anne. Juliet.
Hello, everyone. Juliet Walker, and I actually live up north of you in Newburyport, but I'm based with the Boston office for Kittleson Associates, and we'll be managing the transportation circulation chapter. And you'll also meet my colleague, not tonight, but you'll eventually meet my colleague, Alana McCall, who will be joining me as well to support this project.
All right, excellent. And Emily.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Ennis, and I'm an urban designer and planner. I'll be focused on the zoning portion of this and how it relates to land use and your other goals. And like Juliet, I'm a little bit north of you. I'm based in Newbury. So very excited to be working with all of you on this project.
All right, excellent. So the team will be here if you have questions for them, but I'm going to just give you a little bit of an overview of how this process will work and give you a sense of what to expect. I also want to thank you for taking the little questionnaire that we sent around. I'm going to go over what you told us. So that's always fun for us to see. But first, I'd love to know you all a little bit better. If you don't mind me turning the tables back to you, and I can kind of call on people as I see them, but I'd love to know, how long have you lived in Gloucester or been associated with Gloucester, if you worked there or summered there or whatnot, as well as lived there. And then you can, and this is going to be a little tricky, not for the beginning people, but for the end people. So I'd love you to name one thing that you love about your city that you hope will never change. And I'd like you not to repeat anything that was mentioned before you. So that's why I really want you just to do one thing, because you probably love a lot of things, but give the folks that come after you a little bit of a chance to think of something. And if you're game to do that, what I'm going to do is just call on people in the order that I see you. And I'm going to tell you who's in the running so you can get prepared. So I'm going to call on Rick Noonan first, and then Henry McCarl second. Rick, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Rick Noonan. My wife and I moved to Gloucester about 20 years ago. My mom had lived here about 10 years earlier than us, so that was the attraction to come north instead of going south. We started a little business in town. We've been there for 20 years now, if you can believe that. On my fifth year appointment to the planning board. People always ask me why, and I said I just simply tell them that I'm nosy and I want to know what's going on. And I guess the thing in one word that's interesting in Gloucester is diversity, right?
Diversity. And when you mean diversity, are you talking about socioeconomic diversity, or can you specify?
Well, I mean, we've got every sort of, yes, so socioeconomic, technology, business, people. When we moved to town, it was not so much. And now I think over the last 20 years, you've seen new businesses come to town. You've seen the fishing industry evolve and survive. New types of things happening on the waterfront. Some people think that's a threat, but I think, certainly from a planning board's perspective, if we manage new projects well, it always seems that the projects turn out a little bit better than they started in the process. And we've had a number of those. working and becoming friends with Greg over the last several years, we're always interested in benchmarking change. When we make a change to a zoning, approve a project, we want to see what that impact is. And so that's the interesting part for me. I mean, there's a lot of history with us as a city, 400 years, right, coming up this year, and maintaining that authenticity is a big part of this planning process, and that's, I think, near and dear to a lot of people. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rick. All right, so we're going to go to Henry, and then after that, it'll be Doug Cook. Henry, go ahead.
Yes, I'm a retired college professor. Interestingly enough, I actually taught courses in urban economics. Before my wife and I moved full time here to Gloucester in the year 2001, I was a professor at the University of Alabama in Birmingham and had served for 10 years on the Birmingham Planning Commission as one of my civic activities, 7.5 years of which I was chairman of that commission. It's only about 10 times bigger than Gloucester. But I can tell you, it was a great experience. And to be perfectly frank, the issues there were many the same. It didn't have quite the kind of history that Gloucester has. But at any rate, I've been on the planning board since 2001, 2002. So I'm kind of the senior member, and I'm the vice chairman because I absolutely appreciate not being chairman. And basically, I've been really enjoying working with Rick and everybody. I have been appointed by 4 different mayors. So I can't, how many years now? Coming up on 22 years on the board.
Yeah, right after the last plan was adopted, it sounds like.
Yes, and in fact, I got in on the tail end of that and actually knew the woman that was mostly responsible for that. She was an amazing woman who had done a wonderful job. But my God, when I look at the amount of work that went into that, so I have great appreciation for the planning process. And the one thing I love about the community is that it has had what I consider to be fairly progressive leadership over the whole time that I've been involved with this planning board. Maybe I'm a little biased because I've been on the planning board for that same length of time. But my wife and I own property here. My wife unfortunately passed away in 2021, but I'm still hanging in there. So thank you.
All right, well, thank you. So far we have Rick saying diversity and Henry saying progressive leadership. Doug, you're on next, and then I'm going to call on David Rosen after that. Go ahead, Doug.
All right, thank you. Yes, so my wife and I moved to Magnolia, village of Magnolia in 1995. We both came from Manchester, which is a neighboring town. So we know this area very well. My background is landscape architecture. I went to school for that. I currently have a business, a landscape design build company. And I think one of the main, the one thing that I really appreciated of the town is its natural amenities. I can't tell you how many different properties I've been to in the town that I see for the first time and just in awe of the natural beauty that we have around here. It's such a gem in that sense. And I just appreciate that very much. And I'm really looking forward to working with you and working with my colleagues. Like Hank said, I'm really impressed with this group of people that is the planning board. And I think this is going to be a really a great opportunity for us to make our mark with this plan going forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Doug. All right, so natural amenities. David, and then we're going to call on Beverly Bookin.
Evening, everyone. David Rosen. I have been here since 1992 when we bought our house. We moved here from Brooklyn, New York. I'm a landscape architect by training. I've run a real estate advisory company for 30 plus years, recently semi-retired from that. I'm going to echo both Rick and Doug in terms of the economic diversity. I think that's one of the really attractive characters, the historic character of the downtown area and the easy access to open space, both the woods and other protected lands as well as the ocean.
All
And
right.
I'm looking forward to this process. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So I wrote as yours, the historic character of the downtown area as your one. I know you mentioned a few things. I just want to give
Yep.
other people a chance to.
Understood. Thanks.
Okay, good. So Beverly's next, and then we're going to go to Jane.
Good evening. My name is Beverly Bookin, and I am a retired land use planner from Portland, Oregon, where I practiced for over 35 years. We moved east upon retirement for the usual reasons. Our children and our grandchildren live in the Boston area, and we knew Cape Ann, and that's where we've settled. We've been here 6 years, and I've been on the planning board about 3+ years because I needed to remind Greg, reading the code, that a member of the planning board had to have lived in the city for 3 years before they could be appointed, for good reason, because that way you get to know the community well enough to help guide planning decisions. I wanted to note that I'm especially glad to see Kittleson on the team, because Kittleson was founded in Portland. And in fact, Wayne Kittleson and I, the founder of Kittleson, go way back. We actually went to Northwestern University together in the late 60s, which gives you a sense of how old both of us are. And in the course of my practice in Oregon, I've probably done dozens and dozens of projects with Kittleson. So it's kind of good to reconnect. What I find interesting and both challenging about the East Coast, and particularly Gloucester, is the colonial history. Remember, I'm from the Pacific Northwest. Portland was founded in 1846, and our community was founded in the 1600s. And so there is this really interesting historic ethos that permeates the community. And I really think that despite all the 400 years, we're celebrating a 400th anniversary, and we've become quite a much more ethnically diverse and socioeconomically diverse. That ethos really does carry through into the community in a way that, as an outsider, I have observed.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. So I've got colonial history here and the historic ethos. So that's awesome. Thank you. And great to know about that connection too with Kittleson.
Yes.
All right, Jane, you're up. And then we're going to call on Catherine after that.
Great. Poor Sean, he's going to have his work cut out for him here. So I'm Jane Remsen. I've been summering in Gloucester since I was too young to remember. And my parents moved here in the 80s, although I was grown up and moved out, so I didn't go with them. But I summered here. My husband and I bought a house here in the 90s, and we moved here in 2015. In fact, I think it was like the day after my son graduated from high school. We were like, hi, we're in Gloucester now. And I've been on the planning board. I don't actually know how long I've been on the planning board. Since maybe, I don't know, maybe Rick or Greg can remember that. Seems like a long time. And it's really hard to come up with something else, because I was in Rick's camp. I love the socioeconomic diversity. I love the diversity of the villages and neighborhoods that we have. I love the diversity of thinking that is in our community. And after that, I would have said my go-to places would be Dogtown or, the Annisquam River, but somebody covered that. Then I was going to go to historic character for the downtown, but David got there first. So I guess one thing I would not want to see change, if I could dig really deep, is the vibrant nature of the discussions and debate that goes on in Gloucester about Gloucester's future.
I love that. See,
as long as it remains positive and healthy, I wouldn't mind if like some of the negative stuff was put to the background.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of this exercise, because it's at least the folks that go last, you need to dig a little deeper. So thank you. That was a good one. All right. So I think we have Catherine, and then I'm actually not sure. I see Sean, but I also see Sal. Is he also on the planning board? No. So it's
Sal-
just Sean after Catherine then, is that right?
So Sean is an appointed member. Catherine's our scribe is a staff member.
Oh, all right, Catherine. So you're off the hook then. So then we have, I'm sorry, you said Sal is an appointed. I'm
No.
It's
sorry.
not,
He's
is
not,
not.
so I should skip him.
just
Okay.
Sean. Yep.
Just Sean. Okay, Sean, you're up.
I'm going to be very as brief as possible because I'm actually in Boston for an event tonight and I'm in a very noisy place. So I was appointed to the planning board, I think in 2007.
I knew.
Had a little bit of interruption in the service for a while and then been back since. My wife is originally from Gloucester. I moved here we moved back in 1987. So we've been here for a while. Everyone's touched on a lot of the stuff that I truly love about Gloucester. As Rick said, the diversity, the neighborhoods. Someone who lived in West Gloucester, out in the woods for many years, and chose to sell that property and move downtown because of the vibrancy of downtown. I really have partial to our downtown. But I think one of the special things about Gloucester is that over the course of time that I've been on the planning board, as Gloucester has changed over the years or has adopted new features such as say Market Basket. There had been typically a fear that bringing in those new things was going to change the spirit of Gloucester, and the truth is it hasn't. That Gloucester has remained very much Gloucester despite the changes we've seen over the years, and I think our strong history really proves that should be the case in the future too. That despite what changes we have, and whether it's retail or housing, that Gloucester really remains Gloucester regardless of the changes that goes through.
All right, I love that. So what I wrote down here is that the spirit of Gloucester is strong and resilient to change. Does that capture the general essence, Sean?
You said it much better than I did.
Okay, awesome, good. Well, thank you. That's always fun for me. It's a nice way to get to know you all. So let's keep going here. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of a sense of what I think all of you actually did participate in this questionnaire. And so I'm going to just give you a rundown of what you told me, which is always very helpful. And I want you to be able to see each other's responses. Now, know that I did summarize, and many of you said similar things. So you might not see your exact words here, but I tried to capture the essence of what everyone said. So first we asked you, what are your hopes for this plan? If you were to look back after you've done all this work for 18 months and you look back, and you've implemented for a little bit too, and you look back on it, what would make you feel that this was a very successful plan? And so the things you said that were important, that community engagement and really having a process that strives for consensus to the extent that that's feasible, increased, having the community come off with an increased understanding and support for housing, understanding more about how much growth we can actually sustain, having a politically and financially realistic plan and something that's viable for economic prosperity, addressing the vulnerability to sea level rise and climate change impacts, keeping your downtown viable. A lot of you mentioned how much you love downtown and really keeping it viable, and even maybe there's room for improvement to it. Updated understanding of existing conditions, trying to understand what's changed since 2001, since you last did a comprehensive look at the community. And then having a vision that both respects the community, but also encourages that reasonable growth, diversity, vitality, and resilience. And so having something that a lot of you talked about, the historic nature of the community, the spirit of Gloucester. So respecting that and preserving that, but also encouraging things that are reasonable in terms of growth, diversity, vitality, resilience. So I'm just going to move through these so we can get through. I know you have other things on your agenda tonight. Some of the things you said, what are you're most curious to learn about through this process is community perspectives on housing needs and development capacities, pulse of the community. And so this gets back to engagement, really understanding what people want, how to bring people together around this plan. So again, around our process and community engagement, and feeling like the community seems fractious and wanting to see this as a community building process. We don't just do engagement because we want to hear from people, but we also do engagement because it helps to build stronger communities. You want perspectives. What are their perspectives about growth and climate change impacts? And then wanting to hear voices that are not represented in public meetings. So a lot of similar themes in these responses. Some of the greatest challenges you think we'll face: strong resistance in the community to increasing the housing supply, misunderstanding of housing and affordable housing, and a challenge to balance housing need against preservation of the city, parking and traffic issues, zoning, needing solutions for housing insecurity and homelessness, a tension between tourism and the fishing industry, resilience and sea level mitigation, and eroded trust in government. Those are all seen by you all to be some challenges that we're going to face and hopefully tease out in this process. And then last slide on this, greatest opportunities that you see that this plan can help with. There's a strong sense of community and volunteerism already in Gloucester, so building upon that. Celebrating the 400-year anniversary can be an opportunity as well. Distinctive history and culture. A lot of you talked about that, both in terms of the diverse culture that you have, but also the long and significant history that you have. Help with affordable housing. And then some of you mentioned a few times the MBTA, transit-oriented development zoning, which we're happy to talk more about. I'll just gloss over that for now. Diverse neighborhoods and economically diverse population. You're seeing all of these as opportunities, and some of you mentioned this already. Significant coastline, and then preserving resources, improving experience of living and enjoying those resources, particularly your natural resources. So this is always a really helpful way for us to start a project out. And I just want to thank you for giving us this information right off the bat here. And sometimes I leave a little room to talk about it, but I am conscious of the time, and we went a little long with the intros, so which was perfect. That's not a criticism. So let's move right into the comprehensive planning fundamentals. So we cover some of this in our proposal. You're probably familiar with this process. Many of you are in the industry to some extent, planners yourselves or landscape architects, professors. So this will be probably some review for you, but this is what we think, how we define a comprehensive plan. It's really ultimately a way to respond to change over time. We all know your community will change, and you want to be thoughtful about how you shape that change. It is long range and visionary. We typically go out 10 years, sometimes 15, sometimes even 20 years. And it all ends up being a policy document that hopefully all your boards and committees will, and commissions will, and town and city officials will look back to and really use it as a basis for helping them make local decisions in the future. So some of the questions we like to try to guide you and the community to answer throughout this process are, how can you balance those competing interests? We already heard some mention of tourism versus being a fishing, having a fishing industry, having a working port. How can you strategically shape change to capitalize on those opportunities, preserve your assets at the same time, and the things you really love about the community? And then who are you? Somebody mentioned we want to remain authentic. We're a tourism draw in some ways, in a seasonal community. In some ways, you're also a year-round community. You have a very long and deep history as you're celebrating your 400-year anniversary. And so what is your authentic identity? You've changed over time, of course. Your population has gone through some changes, but you still have an authentic identity. And so that's something that we'd like to help you identify and strengthen through the planning process and through implementing the plan. And then last, how can you leverage your assets to help you achieve goals? You have a lot of assets, and you mentioned a bunch of them today. And how can you leverage those assets, preserve those assets, but also leverage them? And so some things that will result or be achieved through this plan. We do believe strongly and very deeply in community engagement, and we spend a lot of energy helping you have successful community engagement. And I mentioned earlier that having strong engagement is not just a way to inform the plan so you can hear those voices, try to come to some consensus around a unified vision, but it's also a way to bring people together to create stronger community. And so that's something else that we try to promote throughout the process. The policy, or I'm sorry, the plan is also an opportunity to create a policy roadmap to guide that local decision making. We want you to comply with state requirements. We want you to allocate municipal resources responsibly and strategically. And we want to help guide local decisions so that this document will be embraced by decision makers, and then take a fresh look at zoning. And that's one of the main reasons we brought Emily Innes into this, is to really help with that aspect of it, because we knew it was important to you. We'll also be using, we call it a systems approach, where we don't stick with those traditional statutory elements, housing, economic development, historic and cultural, natural resources, because we see that they're really all connected. And so we look for those connections throughout your process. We look for connections, could be through sustainability connections, and could be connections around equity and preserving diversity. There are lots of connections, public health connections. And so you'll see in the planning documents that we provide you along the way, we're going to start to really highlight those connections. And the plan that you'll end up with will be kind of weaving those things together. And then I gave you a bunch of examples here. Our existing conditions profiles, what you'll get, the kind of work product that you'll get is a very visual summary of findings that we'll design in a graphically appealing way that will be appealing to the broader public, as well as, you know, everyone in your community. We like to create a document that's accessible to people. And then you'll have very detailed appendices, because we also know that the detailed data is important. And those appendices will have lots of charts and tables to really help you document those existing conditions. So this is just an example of when I say it'll be visual. This is from the Medway Master Plan. We've just pulled in a few different charts and diagrams and things to demonstrate what we mean by a visual summary. Then we'll also, as part of your scope, you included a build out analysis, and we're going to be doing that in 2 phases. This will be done partially in phase 1, where we'll just lay the baseline scenario, and we'll try to understand what your current zoning allows for development. And we'll give you, this is something that we did in Framingham as an example, but we'll just give you the bottom line of, well, how many units, single family or multifamily units would your current zoning support? We look at environmental constraints, lot sizes. There's a number of different factors that go into this. It's a relatively complicated analysis. And so we're going to be starting that off in really the next month or so. And then later on in phase, actually now I can't remember if it's phase 2 or 3, but later on in the process, we'll build in some scenarios. You know, if you're looking to change zoning in this area, you know, and I don't know where yet, and you want to promote this certain type of development, whether it's commercial, industrial, or some type of housing, we'll basically redo the base scenario with these planning scenarios to show you, well, if you did this, what kind of results could you have? And then we'll create a vision for you, working really closely with the community in very broad outreach that will happen in phase 2. This is an example of a vision statement in Ipswich. Every vision statement we write is quite different, because we actually really draw from what community members tell us that they value about the community and that they want to see changed in the next decade or so. And then we'll also create with you and with the community goals that address core themes that are coming out of the engagement. And so those goals are often measurable. They don't all have to be measurable. And they basically are conditions that you're aiming for to try to achieve that vision over the course of that decade or so. And then we'll be providing a future land use map, and that will come along usually in phase 3 when we're really thinking about the strategies. We start to lay out, well, what does a future land use map look like in Gloucester to support that vision and the strategies that are coming out. And this is an example. We usually zoom in if you have a downtown. Ipswich has a town center, so we zoom into the town center, but there's also a town-wide or a citywide, in this case, future land use map. And it's really more of a diagram, as you can see, where you want change. In this instance, they're looking for a river walk and green space along the river. They're looking for some housing units and change in the purple areas. They're looking for preservation of existing neighborhoods in the yellow areas. So that's just to give you a sense. And then we also give you strategies to help you achieve those goals. And the strategies will be specific actions. The strategies will also be accompanied by an action plan, which comes in the form of a matrix or really a spreadsheet that shows you lots of details around what department would this strategy fall into? Roughly, what is the expense of the strategy? If it costs any money, is it a $1 sign or a $4 sign? And then what are some potential funding sources? And so that's what the action plan will look like in the form of a spreadsheet. But in the plan itself, you'll get the strategies and what kind of strategy. Is it as a physical kind of strategy, a design? Is it a regulatory or a policy strategy? Is it programmatic, some kind of program the city wants to run? Or is it capacity building, more staffing in certain areas, or different boards or commission capacity, et cetera, or more funding? Okay, I know I'm going through this very fast. This is just an overview. We're going to go into all of these in a lot of detail with you through the process. You might wonder, how do we identify the vision and goals? And that's really where phase 2 engagement, community engagement, becomes very, very important in phase 2 in particular. And so we create tools that we'll talk about in more detail. In fact, I think Alana is going to go over that in a little bit, but we create a variety of tools so that people can engage in lots of different ways. And the idea is, let's instigate as many community conversations as we can throughout phase 2 in particular. We provide information, we provide a structure for that meaningful engagement. This is also where we explore those interrelationships and how things have synergies or even tensions, and we tease out community values in this phase 2. And we also, just a side note, you can see this is an example of the work we did in Winchester. We also keep track of how many people are participating in this process, how many participation points have there been, and we continue to count that throughout the process so that we can keep track of that metric. And hopefully it'll be something that you'll be very proud of and can brag about. We had over 2,500 in the case of Winchester. Okay, so Alana, I want to turn it over to you to go over schedule and next steps, and we're just about close to the end of the presentation.
Perfect. Will you go to the next slide? Thank you. So the way that we schedule our master plans is really in 4 key phases. So right now we are starting phase 1. And I want to be really transparent with you all. Phase 1 is like a fact-finding mission. A lot of times when we kick off projects, folks are ready to start engaging with people, and we'll get there. But right now we are focused on fact-finding. A lot of our conversations are going to be with department heads, trying to learn about sort of the existing conditions of your community. We're looking at data here. And so this phase tends to be more, internal, if that's the correct word for it. So we'll work with you as the committee and with sort of city staff to really create those existing profiles that Jen was talking about. But we want to make sure that people have opportunities to engage. And I think we have a different slide on that in a minute, so I won't get too into the weeds here. But phase 2 is really when we're going to start kicking off those community conversations. That's when we're starting to build that vision and goals. And we believe that the best community plans are created by the community. It doesn't mean much if Jen and I sit in our room and we write what we think Gloucester should be. So we want to make sure that the people of Gloucester have the opportunity to share their ideas and be part of that process. And that's really what we're going to be doing in phase 2. That's when we have lots of different engagement tools that you'll roll out. And that'll be sort of later this fall and then a little bit early next year. And then phase 3 is when we get to say, the community has built this vision and these goals. We've developed this collaboratively. And as the consultant team, we will start to use, using best practices, make recommendations for how you might achieve that sort of community vision and goals. Those will be the strategies. So we'll create a draft list of strategies that will then go through a process in your community again to be reviewed by your community. So there's lots of opportunities for people to provide input on everything that we do in this process. But phase one is really just that fact finding sort of, how many kids go to your public school, things like that, that we're just going to be talking to department heads to know a little bit more about. And then phase four, I like to say, that's when we're really wrapping it up with a bow. We're making sure we're ironing out all the kinks, making sure everything really sticks and is good for your community. And that's when we start to divvy up the tasks, right? Who might be doing what? How is it going to happen? That's the action plan that Jen was talking about. And we are on a tight timeline. We're hoping to be done by the end of next year. So it's a lot, but it will happen quickly, I promise you. And so, as I said, we are starting phase one right now. So of course, that first box that you see is June 15th, which is today, and that is our kickoff meeting. And for each phase, we'll create a schedule that looks a little bit like this. It'll show you what the main tasks are for this phase and, when about we think we'll be doing them. And obviously, if there are any meeting dates, we will include those as well. So just so you all know, next week, we will be coming to Gloucester to take a little tour of your community and see the spots that, the special places and maybe some areas that we might be interested in looking at for redevelopment. So we'll be coming to take a tour, and then we'll be working on a public engagement and outreach plan. That's one of my favorite things to do. I get to really delve into your community and see what spaces exist to help reach people. And I will create this plan that helps you all sort of implement engagement once we get there. So that takes me a little bit of time. Again, it's really fact finding, learning what exists in Gloucester. And then when we meet next, we'll have the opportunity, you all will be able to start writing some outreach goals. We'll set, we encourage communities to pick a number. How many people do you want to reach in this plan? When we have a number, I think people are more motivated to make sure we're reaching that number. So we try and do that, but we also create some qualitative goals about how you'd like to do outreach and things like that. And of course, at our next meeting, we will talk about we call it the POP, the Public Engagement and Outreach Plan. And then we will have a couple other activities that we'll run through with you all. And then over the next couple of months, we are going to be working on that existing conditions profile, which, as I said, we'll be doing interviews with local sort of subject matter experts. And we hope to have that done by the end of August. And we'll also be doing sort of the build out analysis and a lot of the zoning work and sort of that same timeline, all so that we are looking to present to you this existing conditions profile by sometime around the first week in September. We don't have those dates set yet, of course. And we're hoping to have our first community forum where we're really talking to the people, which will kick off phase two sometime around mid to late September. So altogether, this phase is going to be 4 months. And so, as I mentioned, we want to make sure that even though this is more of an internal phase in phase one, we don't want folks to sort of lose interest for the next 4 months. And so what we've done is we've created this opportunity for people who, ask questions about how can I get involved? What can I do? Right now, we're hoping to create a library of Gloucester's sort of special places. We want to collect images that we can include in our plan with proper credit, of course, but we want to make sure that not only like these documents matter to people, right? And so when they're able to see their photos in them, they have attachment, they're excited about these plans, but also it makes sure that we're highlighting the places that people who live in Gloucester find special. And so we are going to be hosting this photo submission period where we'll accept photos of really anything, but hopefully of Gloucester. And just a quick little precursor, and we'll of course go over this again when we're closer to phase 2 and really launching our engagement. As I mentioned, we're going to have this forum in September, which will be really the introduction to phase 2. So the first time we're really going to the people, talking to the people. And then we have a couple of engagement tools that we use for our master plans. So one of these is our meeting in a box, which is essentially a facilitation guide that allows people to host their own conversations. There's a lot of reasons why folks don't feel comfortable coming to a public forum and, airing their grievances or even sharing the things they love about their community. There's a lot of things that keep people, maybe they have to bring their kids to, extracurricular activity at the same time as the public meetings, or they don't feel as comfortable going to public spaces. There's so many reasons. So we've created this way for people to have their own meetings and share ideas. So there are questions that will be asked based on the guide, and you'll be able to connect. We've had so much success with this in a lot of communities. We have, folks will go to the library and host a meeting. They'll go to a senior center. My personal favorite, which has been very popular recently, we've had folks going to 4th grade classrooms and talking to kids about what they want to see in the future. Those are my favorite responses to read. If every 4th grader wants a cotton candy store, there is a demand for a cotton candy store in your town or your city. So that's, it's kids know a lot. So we try and get them involved however we can. And we will host sort of like the more traditional community survey that folks are familiar with. We like to have both an online and a paper version for folks to access it however they're most comfortable. We create these opportunities and sort of small activities. There's a lot going on in your community, and people might not know about your plan. They might not know about the municipal process, but they might know about the parade that's happening or the festival that's happening. And so we try and encourage that as, members of this committee, you show up in these spaces and you're talking to people about the plan to get them connected. So we will create some opportunities for you to sit at tables with, some questions to ask people as they walk by and connect them to this plan. And then the last thing we do, we call it our crowd map. This is an interactive mapping exercise that we host on our project website, which allows people to make place-based recommendations. So we ask a series of questions like, where would you be interested in seeing economic development? And of course, we'll work together on those questions, but they could really be anything. Where would be a great place for residential development? Or where would you like to see more open space? Things like that. And people can drop a pin right onto the map and answer a series of questions about it. And then that also helps us build that future land use map, because we're asking the people, what do they want to see where?
All right, excellent. Thank you, Alana. So I hope that wasn't too much to throw at you all at once. We wanted to give you an overview so you know what to expect. And we're happy to take questions. We don't need to go anywhere, but I also know you have other things on your agenda. So we'll let you all let us know if you want us to stick around.
Thank you very much for that. It was it's refreshing to have new eyes looking at the work that we've done in the past. I mean, we've had several plans culminating in the last 5 years: open space, recreation, harbor plan, and hoping to knit those into this process as well. And again, it's a great opportunity, and I think over the last few years taken for granted the sort of group that we have here. And the sort of Q&A at the beginning is refreshing to hear the depth of experience that we have to work with here. So that's really exciting for me. So thank you. Greg, any comments from you?
Oh geez, I'm supposed to just stay in the background. I thought I was going to have to come up with something after Sean. But if I was asked that question, I would say it's really the volunteerism. And I'm not sure that everyone has that same perspective in the community that they live in. But just the commitment to traditions in this community and the participation in the process, again, whether you like something or you don't, people show up. And, just as much as there's hundreds of volunteers that sit on boards and committees. There are also, that number of people that will show up and express their opinion about what's going on in the city. So I think this is going to be a great process for that. It's also going to be, I think, refreshing to also have that kind of a little bit, not exactly a blank canvas, but the opportunity to kind of, with a little bit of pause, kind of reflect on really seeing what's happened in the last 20 years and really have that opportunity to say, well, here's what I'd love to see moving forward when it's not in the context of a policy or a permit or a project, to kind of, take a little time to really reflect. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. And Jane, go ahead.
Yeah, can I just, I have a comment, which is more of a concern, that Jen, I want to make sure that everyone feels heard as part of this process. I know that's your intent, but it feels so impossible, that, there's silent people out there. We have no idea what they think. There's the vocal, minority that thinks that there's a conspiracy, that's everyone needs to feel heard. And also my second part of that concern is how do we, sell is totally the wrong word and market is the wrong word, but
Outreach.
include everybody, in the vision that you come up with, that, the product that you come up with. How do we get the community and the current government and next year's government and the year after that's government to buy into it?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jane. Great, really great questions. So Alana, I wonder if you could speak a bit about how we track who's participating and help with targeted outreach and how we've used the meeting in a boxes, and then anything else that comes to mind.
Hi, Jane, that's a really great question. It's actually, I like talking about, that's what I wrote my master's thesis on. So that's what I'm really, really passionate about, is making sure that hard to reach populations are involved in the municipal process. And you're right, there's no one thing we can do to make sure that every resident of Gloucester participates, but what we can do is make sure that they have the opportunity to. And so we, throughout this process, we do a lot of tracking, like Jen said. One thing that we do is, and it's by election, people have the opportunity to share parts of themselves with us if they'd like to, but we ask demographic questions, things like your age and your gender, and we compare them to Census and American Community Survey data. And we do this throughout the process, not at the end. We don't compare it at the end. Each week I will run an analysis where I'm comparing how many, people of color have participated as compared to how many people of color live in your community. And we do it based on percentages, not like the actual number, to make sure that representation is really even. We know that unfortunately not every single resident of Gloucester is going to touch this project, but we want to make sure that a representatives of your community is. And so each week when if I see that, people under the age of 25 are just not participating, each week I will provide sort of recommendations for how to reach those underrepresented communities. They're really targeted outreach ideas to make sure that folks have the opportunity to participate if they'd like to.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if I may as well.
Yes, sir.
So for Jane too, one of the more enticing and exciting things about the Goldson firm is that they are nimble and they're able to pivot. They do that intake and they're really grounded and rooted in community outreach. So being able to pivot during the process was something that was really outstanding in their proposal. They're not just going to give you, here's your generic plan, the same plan that we've done in the last 50 communities. Thank you very much and you're welcome. So that was something that at least we're looking forward to going forward.
Thanks.
David.
Thanks for that presentation. Can you make your slide deck available to us? Or to
Yeah,
Greg?
absolutely. I can email it off to Greg and David right after this meeting.
That'd be perfect. And Jen, in one of the slides at the beginning, you mentioned the state mandate about transportation and housing, and you were going to kind of come back to that was there something else that you wanted to say about that tonight?
No,
or
I
that's
just,
later on?
I'm sorry, I wasn't very clear. I didn't mean I'd come back to it tonight. I just meant that I'm sure
Okay.
this will come up a lot as part of the process because you're already looking at how to address the MBTA community requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other comments before we let these guys go from the board members?
I think just for what it's worth, we'll be getting a website up on the city's page pretty soon. With a lot of this information, we can include the slide deck that was presented tonight, as well as an update about the timeline and the process moving forward, with the hopes that we'll book something very, very soon for either mid to late September, as was mentioned, for a initial community forum. So look for that in the coming days and weeks. And then from there on out, we'll have a dedicated web page created by the consultant firm that we can link off to with much more up-to-date and pertinent information as we go throughout the process.
So then a follow-up question to that, does that include, for example, a press release to the Gloucester Daily Times or, social media promotion?
Yeah,
about-
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sorry.
Once we get that up and running, we will push out a press release and we can work with we have a small PR firm that we work with to push it out through our Innovate Gloucester hashtags and Twitter and Facebook and all that as we move forward. So the word will certainly be out there and we're going to do our best to reach all parties and everyone who wants to be engaged. Because point well taken earlier, Jane.
Thanks.
Hank?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, there's a very active senior community here. And I think that there are lots of ways to reach into that community. But I think the most important thing for the future is to get in there with the younger people that are coming along and concerned about the future of their city. And I would highly recommend that you deal with some of the folks at the high school in order to get the young people that are coming up involved in this whole thing. I have been impressed over the years with the kind of leadership that can be brought forth from the young people in the school system, and that's usually a difficult group to get into something like this, but it's the thing that's going to keep them happy in the future. A lot of them are going to leave, but some will come back. Some will find places to stay here, and we have to have opportunities for those young folks. Thanks.
Beverly?
I second that because if Hank hadn't said it, I would. I think a great source of involvement would be high school kids in their civics and American government classes, where it actually becomes a project, teachers to help kids become involved at the local level. And it might even be well worth having a high school advisory committee of young people who could participate in group in outreach activities so that their parents and other neighbors realize the kind of energy that is with young people, and also the fact that the future is for them, and that's why we're planning for them. So I would really recommend working with the high school here, and there's only one. So take that for what it's worth.
I love that idea. I have 2 high schoolers at home, so I think that would be perfect.
There's a song about that, right?
And I guess just in closing, one of the comments that I would have is that it would be nice to be able to have these recorded meetings on the plan specific sites instead of having to go into the city's recorded meeting archive. I know people look at these things if they can't attend. I've only been looking at these for 3 years and I still find it difficult to track down a past meeting recording. So just as a little bookmark. Any other comments before we move on to the agenda? Hearing none. Thanks again, guys. It was a great
Thank you
presentation.
so much.
Really look forward to working with you.
Have a good night.
Greg, if you have an agenda handy.
Yes, I do.
All right. Okay, next on the agenda for this evening is the consent agenda. DNF Realty LLC to divide one lot in one lot in 9 at 9 Andrews Court map, Assessors map 237, lot 49. I believe we have representation here this evening for Andrews Court.
Good evening, everyone. Sal Frontiero for DNL Realty. This matter has been continued twice. We did a site visit, and the board decided they'd like what I would probably call a road widening plan to be developed. That was done, submitted last week, and we also copied the DPW and engineering. I believe that was requested we do so. I'm not sure if the board got any feedback yet on that. But the plan proposes to widen the road in the areas in front of this lot to 20 feet. And it also delineates the sort of narrowness of the current edge of pavement, which is anywhere from 10 feet to around 6 feet. So it would be a significant widening. And I think it would provide adequate access as such. It also details the utility plans. I did take a look at that. It's a little bit beyond my pay grade, but John Judd may be logged in here as well. I'm not sure. To answer any technical questions in that regard. So we feel that a 20-foot widening would be sufficient for the traffic that would be incurred, additional traffic as a result of this development. So, and as this board knows, maybe from the last meeting, I wasn't in attendance, but the board can condition an A&R on roadway improvements. So if the board deems it's not adequate as is, it can be deemed adequate with improvements as a condition to the approval. So.
Greg, do you want to let John in as a?
Yes, I believe I just did.
Okay.
Didn't work.
Hi, all.
Evening. Beverly, you have a quick question before we let. Oh, just saying hi. Thank you. I don't know if you have something to share on the road widening perspective, John.
I don't. I probably can find it on my iPad. Greg, if you had it handy, if you want to bring it up, I can give you any
There we go.
description. So thank you. For the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants. This is what you're looking at, is a sewer extension plan that we were contracted to prepare for the applicant. And currently sewer extends partially up Andrews Court on the left-hand side of what you see on this plan. As you know, Andrews Court connects to Essex Ave in 2 locations. And on the westerly side, there is a sewer. There you go. Thank you. Sewer manhole that's there with a stub. And what we're doing is we're proposing a series of manholes and an 8-inch sewer line that would extend up for this project, as well as for the benefit of other properties on Andrews Court. It's my understanding that the city engineer and DPW director have signed off on the approval of this plan. As part of this process with the A&R, the applicant contacted me and asked me to show where we were able to widen the traveled way within Andrews Court along the frontage of these proposed lots. And as Sal has pointed out, we've been able to show a 20-foot wide width in front of the lots, pretty much along the entire frontage of what is shown as the lots on the A&R plan prepared by county land surveys. So, you know, in some areas it's very tight, but other areas is a little bit of a shoulder. But the applicant, he indicated, as he's putting in this sewer line, he's going to be doing quite a bit of, obviously, excavation and damage to the existing road. So he's going to put a top coat, a binder coat, and a top coat. So this will look, it will have the same width as basically Whipplewoods Road, which is the subdivision road that is perpendicular to Andrews Court, just west of this sheet. And that's an existing 20-foot wide pavement that extends down along Whipplewoods Road. So that is really what I was asked to do to update this sewer extension plan to show the 20-foot width, and I can answer any questions that you might have. We did add a roadway section detail, as you see there on the right-hand side of that sheet.
Jane?
Yeah, John, so is the extra width, I'm assuming that's coming out of the side of the road that has the A&R lots on it. It's not impacting at all the people across the street?
Well, it's definitely expanding on both sides. The existing traveled way is not centered on that. It's a variable width. You can see that, how there's jogs and angles and so forth within this old layout. So what we're trying to do is work within the layout, which we have, the right to do. It's a right to improve and to lay utilities and improve the road as needed. So it's definitely going to be an improvement for both sides. So I wouldn't say it's going to be one side or the other. It's going to be as
So-
late.
Is it possible then that you're taking like a foot of people's yards or fences or?
No, everything's within the right of way. So there's going to be no proposed work within people's property lines themselves.
Right, I know, it's just that it's a 3-foot right of way or whatever. Most people don't even know that that's there and they put their fence there or something.
I can tell you there's not a lot of yards out here. I believe Sal said you had a site visit. There's, it's, I'm not
Okay.
sure how to describe it. It's
Yeah,
not.
no, you answered my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments from members? And Greg, any follow-up from you?
The only thing I would just ask is, what's being potentially proposed as a condition? Obviously, the lots can't be developed if they're proposed to be sewered. The sewer has to be within. So what form of a condition, Sal, you were mentioning, would it be that the improvements are completed prior to pursuing a building permit on any of the lots?
Yes, I think that's reasonable.
Okay. And the only other thing I would mention for the board is that because of this application involving 9 lots, it certainly will involve 6 or more units. So the inclusionary requirements will be applied to this. It's a little bit tricky just not knowing how things will be developed unless you look at the yield and if there were, for instance, one lot that a 2-family was built on that was at deeper affordability, that would clearly make it clear and satisfy the number of units that would need to be provided. But otherwise, it's really depending upon how the lots are built out in terms of the number of units that would need to be provided.
But
Beverly?
Greg, we don't have. Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Beverly.
Jane. No, Jane, go ahead.
So Greg, just to follow up on that, we don't have to worry about that though, right? Because they just won't get.
No, I just
They
think your
won't be able
motion,
to.
your motion should just include that it applies, just so that it's clear on the record that the condition would be that there be no building permit prior to the implementation of the improvements that have been presented, as well as because this application involves 6 or more units, that the inclusionary requirements of section 511 apply.
I just want to say that I think it's a generous plan, the 20-foot wide, but we're adding, is it 9 lots and the potential of several duplexes, right? So the fact is that fire access here is important, and the existing houses, their protection is enhanced by having a 20-foot right of way for fire access.
Thank you, Beverly. Any other comments? Jane,
Greg,
you
what
ready?
was what was the section again, Greg?
511.
Section 511.
I should know that by heart.
Geez, now you got me questioning it. But I believe it is.
So is everybody ready for me to make a motion?
Sure am.
Okay, I move that we approve the A&R at 9 Andrews Court with the condition that no building permit is issued until the road improvements are satisfied and the inclusionary requirements of section 5.11 are applied.
And sewer as well, yeah.
And
second.
sewer.
So we have a motion and a second. A roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
member McCarl,
Yes.
member Bookin,
Yes.
member Cook,
Yes.
member Henry, I'm not sure if he
Yes.
dropped off. Oh, he is here. Thank you. Member Remsen
Yes.
and Member Rosen.
Recused.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Now
Thank
I'm
you.
going to drop off. Good night,
Okay.
folks.
Thanks,
See you
Sean.
later.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thanks.
thank you, John.
John, thank you. Just need an agenda.
Yep. I'm just pulling it back up.
Mhm. Okay, next on the consent agenda this evening, Paul R. Hackett and Susanna A. Taylor to divide property with two principal structures into two lots at 31 Leonard Street, Assessors Map 118, Lot 63. I believe we have representation for this one as well.
Just
Hello
a point
again.
of order. Sorry, I don't think those are the owners. Isn't it a trust that's the owner?
Yes, they are the trustees. For the record, Sal Frontiero, 46 Middle Street for the applicant, Paul Hackett and Susanna Taylor as trustees of the Sarian Hackett Trust 1994. We're here tonight seeking an A&R approval to divide a lot in Annisquam into two lots, each of which would contain an existing house. The property is located in the R20 zoning district. And if you look at the plan, if Greg can call the plan up. The first dwelling is on what's called Lot B on the plan. Can you call that up, Greg? Would you like us to do
Yeah,
it?
I'm working on it.
Sure.
1 second.
Yep.
Well, Field was very good at this last week. I don't know what the problem is.
I'll tell you exactly what the problem is. I'm working on a laptop and I'm
Oh,
using
yeah,
a
that's
track.
right.
I'm using a trackpad. Like hunting.
Hmm.
There we go.
All right, so I don't know if you, yeah, focusing on that would be better. So you can see the larger the house is on proposed lot B and the smaller cottage is on proposed lot A. And lot B and lot A will continue to be accessed from the current driveways. Lot B is accessed through Arbor Street. As you can see right there in the rear, and lot A is accessed directly through Leonard Street. We will also be granting easements to from lot B to lot A when the ownership is severed, to allow the owners of lot A to access the driveway for lot B for emergency vehicle purposes, which I think is important here, and also for occasional deliveries. There'll be appropriate utility easements for where utilities are on both lots. There is a sewer pumps system on lot A. Again, that will be an easement to allow lot B to continue to use that. This is in the R20 zoning district where the dimensional requirements are 80 feet for frontage. Prior to submitting this application, we went to the ZBA. As this board knows, there's a provision in the zoning ordinance that stems from the subdivision control law, which allows you to get a special permit to divide a lot into two, whereby the existing lots need not comply with the zoning requirements of the particular district if each lot has a principal use dwelling, a building that has been in existence since the subdivision control law was adopted in 1960. These buildings have been in existence since 1900. So we went through that process. I submitted a copy of the unsigned decision from the ZBA. We're just waiting for it to be signed. It's taken a little longer because of the remote meetings. But nonetheless, when the property division is complete, lot A will have 143 feet of frontage, and lot B will have 98.9 feet. So both lots will comply frontage-wise anyway. They will not comply in other dimensional respects. But I believe that satisfies the A&R standard, and both Arbor Street and Leonard Street, especially Leonard Street, are definitely adequate to handle this. They already handled it existing anyway. So I would ask that the Form A be approved. Thank you.
Questions from board members? Beverly?
Sorry. So that being the case, that's why the garage, is it on lot B, is on the lot line? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to have a setback under these,
Yeah,
under
you don't have
these,
any
under
setbacks.
this exception, pardon me?
Yeah, you can do it as a matter of right if the resulting lots comply completely with the zoning ordinance dimensional requirements. If they don't, you simply need a special permit. You do not need any additional relief such as variances. It's a special permit that basically says it cannot be denied unless the division results in, endangering public health and safety, which is one of the
Okay,
reasons
so
why we
this-
thought it was important to allow that easement for the to the rear driveway.
So that's why they went to the ZBA and that's the decision of the ZBA. So
Yes.
that's that
Yep.
Unsigned decision, but that's okay. We trust those.
unsigned decision.
I won't record the plan unless I record the decision with it, so I'll take care of that.
These last words. Any other questions? Hearing none. Jane,
I move that we approve the ANR at 31 Leonard Street.
I'll second it.
thank you, Hank. We have a motion and a second. A roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
member McCarl,
Yes,
member Bookin,
Yes,
member Cook,
Yes,
member Henry, I believe is absent,
Yeah.
member Remsen,
Yes.
and member Rosen.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Al.
very much. Thank you.
I have to get you a frequent flyer card, Sal. We'll see you every week nowadays.
Me or Andrew,
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay, public hearings. Definitive cluster development plan filed by James M. McKenna Esquire on behalf of How Mag LLC to permit a 26-unit residential development at 171 and 281 R Magnolia Ave and 607 Western Ave, Assessors Map 206, Lot 9, Map 198, Lot 20, and Map 199, Lots 11 and 13 has been referred to be continued to our July 6th meeting of 2023. So just need a motion to continue this public hearing.
I move that we continue the definitive cluster development plan for 171 and 281 R Magnolia Ave and 607 Western Ave to July 6, 2023.
I'll second.
Hank, we have a motion and a second. Roll call. Oh, Beverly.
I will not be there at that meeting. I hope that doesn't create a problem with the quorum.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay. I don't think it necessarily will conclude. And if that's the case, you can watch a recording of that meeting and you'll be able to participate at future hearings.
Fine. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
member McCarl,
Yes,
member Bookin,
Yes,
member Cook,
yes,
member Remsen,
Yes.
and member Rosen.
Yes.
Okay, next under public hearings, a definitive open space residential development, OSRD subdivision plan and watershed overlay district special permit filed by James M. McKenna Esquire on behalf of Cole Avenue LLC to permit a 12-unit residential development at 19 Cole Ave, Assessors Map 213, lots 20, and this one has been requested to move to the July 20th regularly scheduled planning board meeting. So if you don't mind making a motion, Jane, that would be wonderful.
Yep. I move that the public hearing for the definitive open space residential development subdivision plan and watershed overlay district special permit for 19 Cole Ave is continued to July 20, 2023.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
member McCarl,
Yes,
member Bookin,
yes,
member Cook,
yes,
member Remsen,
Yes.
and member Rosen.
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent. So we have a set of minutes from June 1st. Seems like yesterday.
Congratulations, Catherine, on getting caught up on the minutes.
yes,
Do you still have more old minutes to do?
She's not talking to you, Jane.
Not unfortunately, but yes, there are still some.
A few old ones, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
you're
still
doing a great-
plugging away, but
You're still doing a great job.
thank you.
I have no comments on these minutes. They look great.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Additions, modifications? Hearing none.
I move that we accept the June 1, 2023 minutes as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes,
I abstain because I was absent.
thank you, Hank.
Carl abstains, member Bookin,
Yes.
member Cook,
Yes,
member Remsen,
Yes.
and member Rosen.
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay, I think that's it. Any other
That
matters
Can we have
unreasonable?
a second? Was it just those? Wasn't
Yeah,
there
we
the
only have,
earlier?
we only have one set of minutes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep.
I thought there were only one, but I saw two on your list there, so. Sorry about that.
Okay,
Nope. So you'll get to enjoy an extra week in between now and the next meeting. So you'll get to enjoy Fiesta next week and the 4th of July. And we'll see you on my wedding anniversary on the 6th.
wonderful.
Congratulations.
But no resentment there.
Now, either my birthday or my anniversary or something. It always happens.
It's always
but-
on a Thursday.
But,
least you
but
got-
I'll have my wife come up and hopefully the meeting won't be too long.
At least you've got full staff now, Greg.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
tell us about
Tell
our
us
new
about your
planner.
staff.
Yeah.
So Eric Hinderly started on Monday. It was kind of a rough week for a start because I was out the last 2 days with a commitment for the city that I won't talk about. And then today he was in the office briefly and was planning on attending this evening, but he will definitely be at the meeting on the 6th. But we're super excited to have him. He's already hit the ground running, with a couple of things that we discussed on Monday and was able to, really participate very well with some efforts this week. So we're really looking forward to having him and he'll be at the next planning board meeting for sure.
So what's his background? Just super quick.
So he just completed his master's. He had some early undergraduate work in planning, but then had kind of worked in a number of areas, actually worked for the Gloucester Housing Authority for a while. And really
That's good.
is very good at public engagement, is bilingual. So super excited. I think, he'll definitely be an asset when we move into engagement with everything that we do, but in particular also with
Bilingual in what other language?
also speak Spanish.
Hey.
Yep. Yep.
And Greg, who is Erin, who we are seeing some?
Erin is our staff support in the community development department. Erin Nicolosi.
Okay,
She's
yeah.
been with us
Yes.
for, now. I think it's probably been 4 or 5 months, I think. I could be wrong. Everything goes by so quickly.
Okay.
Yes, and she's been excellent. And so you'll sometimes see her forward out things. Sometimes they come from me. It depends on, how quickly we can move things to get them to you. But yeah.
Great.
So here's the
Move
most
to
important.
adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Just do a second, Hank. We got a very important question to ask Mr.
Oh,
Cadamatore.
sorry.
So is the new guy a craft beer guy?
We haven't delved too deeply into that yet. I don't think he shies away from it. So I'll learn more. We'll report back at the next meeting.
So Beverly and David, since you came on after me, when back in the day when planning board meetings were in person.
Oh, downtown. Yeah, yeah,
There
yeah.
was a move to
Jane,
Main
I'm sorry. I think I'm losing my connection. I think we could stop you there.
We just got together. That's all. I'm just saying.
Well, just an update on that, obviously with, with the current state of City Hall, those plans for going back in person have been delayed. But I think obviously we're going to, as we're moving towards public engagement on other efforts, we're looking at other spaces and what we could potentially use. So I think probably July will still be remote for the next 2 meetings. But hopefully as we get towards the end of the summer, we could try to find some other venues to potentially have in-person meetings.
And then it'll be hybrid.
That is the mayor's commitment is try to make sure that these meetings are also broadcast. That may not necessarily be, there might be instances where it's broadcast, but it's not a hybrid setting, but
it.
the goal is to try to, the IT department has been working on trying to get 3 facilities that will have hybrid capability, which I think would be another, you know, again, as we've seen, we do see a lot of great participation remotely, and to have, you know, both, it becomes a little bit more of a production. You know, somebody's got to manage that, but it certainly creates the opportunity, particularly for young families, or as was pointed out earlier, with other commitments, to be able to pop in, you know, participate in some way, for whatever part they can offer, and hopefully communicate with the board and on these issues, and then get on with their lives. So hopefully that will work well.
Really?
May I suggest that you look at the synagogue and the churches on Middle Street because it's central location. And there's most religious institutions have figured out how to do hybrid. So they do have setups for hybrid. Their social halls are very flexible and can be set up for public meetings. So they're really, and they're downtown.
Yeah.
So they might be an excellent source of, and I know a lot of the religious community would be very positive toward contributing to the development of the community's comprehensive plan.
Right.
So get over that separation of state and church issue.
Not if it's an open meeting. I don't think that's.
I was teasing, right? But thank you.
Yeah.
It's a good idea, by the way.
I'll go back and move for adjournment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have a motion. I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Second.
All right, Doug, thanks for stepping up, buddy.
No problem.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Noonan,
Yes.
Member McCarl,
Yes.
Member Bookin,
Yes, and I think under Robert's rules, you don't have to have a second to close the meeting, but
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Shane is here still.
no, I'm just saying, I don't think so.
Member Cook.
Go ahead, Doug.
Thanks, Beverly.
Yeah, it's like it's frozen.
I think Doug's frozen.
Yeah.
Member Remsen,
Yes.
and Member Rosen.
Yes,
Okay, Bona Fiesta, happy 4th
Yeah.
of July. We'll
Yeah,
see you
great
next
meeting
month.
tonight, guys.
thank you all.
Glad to be back.
Thanks. Peace. All right,
Good
thank
night.
you.